You can't educate an idiot. You know, some people, unfortunately, you can't help. They're so ignorant, and there's an awful lot of racism that exists in and around the world, really, in some very prominent countries, and it's absolutely surreal. Now, I didn't intend to create much more content. I did say I'm taking a break, but you can't stay silent when the world is in a mess that it's in. And there's some people that will jump on trends, that jump on the bandwagon. And I'd say maybe listen to the people who have been speaking out, while other people were maybe being a bit silent. Because when things become popular, that's when people jump on. And I'm always aware of that. So I've had a problem for a while with just people, the way they look, the way they suppress other people's rights, their freedoms. So, like, look, before I go on a tangent, I'm going to go through some videos that I've seen, which is the whole reason for me to create the video in the first place, because they've triggered me. And it's been a culmination. And this is only a handful. Believe me, I've had more and more just searing into my soul. But I see it a lot with, even if you just talk about like the immigrant situation in America, specifically Latinos and like Mexicans and things. It's very specific. But a lot of people getting affected by it. But even just then, it's like you see that they're hardworking. They work in the farms. They're doing construction. I look on and I'm absolutely baffled what the threat is that they bring. When people say, you know, some people just rejoice at it and they've got no empathy at all. They don't even care. They treat people like cattle. I see it in comments, and I always want to comment, but I think you're not going to turn someone normal who is an absolute arsehole of a human being, are you? They're just going to be that way, and the ignorance is just damning for their life. That's who they are. So they just take joy and pleasure in other people's suffering, and I'm like, you are an absolute arsehole, and I'd love to tell you that, but you still wouldn't get it. I could literally draw you an arsehole and you wouldn't even understand. It's like, that's how thick these people are, you know. They're absolute idiots, and they literally all think they're intelligent. They think they see far superior to everyone else. It's like, no, you're just delusional. So they rejoice at other people's suffering, and you see it even when there's like a disaster and some people have lost their lives. Some people make jokes about it. They think it's humorous. It's like, what's funny about that? What is funny about that on any level? Where's the humor come from? Because they just don't care about anything other than themselves. So everything else beyond them is a joke. That's what it comes down to. They literally couldn't care less. Just horrible people. And effectively, that's who's cheering on all the corruption in the world. So you can be silent when you witness it or speak up. I think wasting your energy on the wrong people, it's pointless. I'd rather do my video content rather than talk to an idiot, and hopefully other people who have some sort of like moral compass, maybe it'll help get them to maybe speak up on issues. And when a change occurs, you can't always change the idiot. It's like I talk about, especially in my books, I said about this with bullies, for instance. You can argue all day long with a bully, but for the most part, they're just ignorant. It don't matter what you say, it could be the most profound speech ever, they'll still say, nah. They're just not interested. A bully, a lot of time, they just want to be a bully. So eventually, you have to sort of build a society that favors kindness, compassion, integration. You build a society that is fair, and you allow these people to exist in their own little bubble, but they'll realize they're not as popular as they used to be. They're no longer relevant. Their ways of thinking are archaic and ancient. It doesn't fit with societal norms that get established. So then they have a choice on their own accord. You're going to have to fit in and start to be normal and kind and fair. And stop being these bullies, these horrible, horrible people. Or you'd be marginalized and keep to yourself over there and always be frustrated that the world isn't this evil place that you loved it to be. And you're just going to have to adapt because everybody else is just going to get on and live around them. So that's my point, really. There's no point wasting your energy arguing with an idiot. You just let an idiot be an idiot. That's how I am. You know, I'm not going to waste my time back and forth with a moron because I'd just rather just leave him as a moron. So now we've established that. Like I said, my intention was to take a break from content creation, whether short-term or long-term. I've just fed up with the lack of growth at times. I've fed up doing everything for free to a point. Like, I give a lot, I don't get anything. It's just costing me overall with the equipment and things. I don't want to go on a tangent like that because I want to focus on this. But me talking on this, it just means that the topic's bigger than me. So any feeling I feel in terms of frustrations and things, It's not enough to stop me creating content that I think significant. So we're going to talk on this now because I think what it is, I'm aware that some people maybe don't know what's going on with the world. I do a lot of reposting on TikTok. I can't bother to create content so much anymore, but I'm just reposting on there. And I'm realizing that maybe people won't understand the context sometimes, maybe I hear it from somewhere and I gather a lot of information from multiple sources, builds my knowledge of a situation. Other people, maybe they don't have that, so they don't know what's going on. So I'm going to show some videos and we'll show what's going on in the world. Like I say, some people will jump on bandwagons, but at the same time, hopefully it helps build them knowledge anyway, and maybe they realize the things they were doing in the past, there's more substance to life. But let's not go down that path so much. Right. So the world is crazy, and the Trump administration are absolutely crazy. So what I want to get the point across early is, because I've seen it in comments, is some people just can't seem to understand why politicians don't answer questions. It's quite obvious and apparent, but if you're not finding it obvious, I'll explain it. They don't answer questions properly, or they circumvent the answer purposefully because they don't want to incriminate themselves or irritate their leadership. In this case, Trump. So if you've got someone who is defense secretary, treasury secretary, what they call the speaker, I can't remember what you call them now. I can't remember what you call them, but one that does the news for the president. Anyway, if they don't do what he wants, he'll replace them. He'll replace them, make their life a living hell. So they have to appease him. So when he gets feedback about their performance, they didn't incriminate him or his agendas, his legislations and things, all the things he's setting out, the protocols, they must toe the line. Otherwise, he is going to replace them. It's as simple as that. So when they're faced with questions, they have to either not answer or try to deviate as much as they can, because they know they're going to incriminate, because they're lying. Because they know they're not doing the right things. It's corrupt to its core. And some of them enjoy the corruption. And some you can see are doing because they're being led to do that. But some of them, I think, absolutely enjoy it. There's one particular I was watching earlier, and I just thought, I wonder what career he's going to have after this, because it's one thing doing it while you've got a position of power and authority, but presidents don't stay presidents forever. They have a term, and then there's an election, and then it all changes again. So after 4 years, well, I don't know where some of these people think they're going to go, because they're absolute assholes. Just putting it bluntly. I might as well. So, what's this one? We'll have to start it just so I can understand the context.
Reaching a boiling point in Los Angeles, and that is a direct result of the actions of this president, who clearly feels that the Constitution...
Yeah, right, okay. So Trump, at this point, has sent in sort of the military. He hasn't just called in the National Guard, he's also called in the armed forces, the actual military. So you get the National Guard are there to enforce the borders and back up for the state, really. But that's their purpose, and that's what they're there for. But but military are built for conflict. They're built for wars, not peacekeeping. And so that's not their remit. That's not what they're there for, or remit. And Trump has literally gone beyond the governor, the California governor in this instance, but he's done it in other states too. The governor didn't want, I don't think they even wanted the National Guard, let alone the military. They felt the police could handle the situation because it was to do with ICE raids, the immigration. Effectively, the people that deal with immigration don't need to come into the streets with these fatigues and covering their face and look all mobster. It looks crazy. Something out of a movie. They could just come plain clothes, set up a date, and they can literally just gather people humanely. But they're not. They're doing it in a very, very haphazard way. And it's caused an awful lot of tension, and hence the protests, which sometimes turns to riots. But I've seen it's mainly been peaceful. It's been sporadic moments, from what I've seen, of some bits that escalate and tends to happen. But it hasn't been like a full scale riot here. No way it has it. We'd seen that in the past. So what Trump's saying is the rioting needs to stop. There's too many riots. And then that's it. The press secretary. So when the press secretary was asked about it, because it's quite obvious, it's heavy-handed, it's way over top, it doesn't need to happen. The governor didn't want the National Guard and the military. It was so overpowering. But that was Trump just trying to instigate situations, create a crisis on purpose, because then he can be the savior. He's got this complex. It's crazy. And so what the press secretary was saying was that no, it was needed because there's been, and then she was mentioning how many arrests. But you're thinking, Well, how many of them arrests were legitimate? Like, how many of them were genuinely fair? Because I saw an awful lot of protesters, for instance, not rioters, protesters. They were getting corralled by the police. So police were hemming them in. They creating a line at one end, and then they created a line behind them without them knowing, and then they corralled them in and just said, "You're all under arrest." They were protesting. You have the right to protest. So there was one woman I saw before we go on to this video, because this is the whole point I'm going to talk about, because I'm not going to keep creating loads of content. I just want to get it off my chest because it's weighing on me. Saw a video of this young woman. She's alone in the street. She's got a line of police blocking the street. Her apartment literally is where they're blocking. She needs to get to her apartment. That's all she wants to do. She's not hurting anyone. She's obviously not a threat. And I'm pretty sure they started shooting towards her with their rubber bullets. I'm not sure, but definitely that happened. But I know she had to leave. She started running, like, and I'm thinking, where's she going? A young female at night. You'd think the police are there to protect her, but instead the police were forcing her away. So who knows if she's in danger after, because she's vulnerable. Like, what on earth is going on? She couldn't even get into her own apartment. And this is what I'm saying. It's crazy, so there's a lot of corruption going on. Now, this is probably before that, but either way, that just lays the foundation here that it's been, from my point of view, it seems to have been the majority peaceful. So I think to overwhelmingly say that it's been riots and it need to be contained and things, I think that's a bit of heavy statement. So let's see what they say here.
Is something advisory and not something that he's bound to. Our local law enforcement, LA Police Department, Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, they are some of the finest in the country. They are prepared and more than capable to handle any sort of civil unrest that comes up. What we're seeing here, however, is an opportunistic president who's trying to send a message to the rest of this country that he's a strong man, that he's a despot. And I would simply submit that he is unbefit, undeserving of the office that he possesses. Each and every one of us up here has strong relationships with all of our local elected officials in Los Angeles. To the extent that there are abuses of power, misapplications of use of force, we have a mechanism to review that and to hold those officers accountable. What we don't need right now is military-grade equipment and personnel answering to the whims of a dictator in the White House on the streets of Los Angeles. That, I humbly submit, makes everybody less safe. I can only speak for myself, not my colleagues, but I'll say this. I stand with our speaker. He's going to have to arrest every single one of us. We all took an oath that we take seriously to uphold and defend the Constitution. We do not... What you are seeing from this president, and it's hard to call him a president in this moment because he's acting like a dictator, is he is trying to jail political opponents. Based on my practice, my experience as a criminal prosecutor, and I know there are others here with experience as well, I have seen nothing that Governor Newsom has done that would be deserving of a criminal indictment or arrest or charge. This is politics at its very worst. So...
Oh, this is the other thing. Trump was saying that he thinks the California governor, should be arrested. Just because he doesn't like him. Just because he doesn't like him.
Part of our solution is that whatever we have to do to defend our constitutional officers, to defend our citizens, to defend everyone who calls California home, we will sue this administration as many times as it takes until justice is served. What we're hearing from advocates suggesting that California is ungovernable, that our sanctuary state laws are impeding the ability of ICE to do their job, that's hogwash. That is absolutely not true. As the U.S. Attorney in Los Angeles has even stated himself, law enforcement is more than capable of going to a federal magistrate, applying for a search warrant, and executing their functions. All that Senate Bill 54 does, the California Values Act, does is ensure that we are not deploying or utilizing state resources to assist them in the execution of their job. ICE is more than capable of doing their job without the benefit of California. SB 54 does not impede their ability to do their job or to keep California safe, but what we are seeing here is the weaponization of law enforcement applied against citizens and non-citizens alike.
Well, we'll add, because I'm not sure I've got a video based on it, because it depends. I can't like every single video that comes across on my For You page. There is talk of the World Cup. I don't know if it's next year or the year after. I'm pretty sure it's next year. Now, think about the World Cup. World Cup is soccer football. It's bigger than the Super Bowl, whether Americans like it or not. In terms of sheer numbers, it's absolutely huge, billions of viewers. And just it's in itself, when in other sports, when they use the word world, like baseball's World Series, it's just based in America. That's not world. When other sports use the term world, it's literally the world. So it's other nations coming together, a bit like the Olympics, really. But they always integrate all year round, really. There's always events, So it's not just like a World Cup; it's bigger than that. I mean, the Olympics. Anyway, so next year it's in America, and they're clamping down on not even just immigration, just even tourists. And apparently, you've got to have documents on you at all times to prove that if otherwise they could deport you or send you to Guantanamo Bay and all sorts of shit. And they're being heavy with that, and they're even making remarks like it. But they had to apparently recently they put something on their website and then they took it down quickly because it's going to harm the income from tourism and stuff and the event itself. It's like America isn't set for this, man. It's just crazy. America isn't ready for people. They're too racist. And they think everyone wants to be in America. No, people just want to visit America for a moment. Maybe there's an event. Maybe there's a reason they've got to be there. But people are not looking to upheaval their whole life to be in America. People don't see it as the land of opportunity that much. But it's like, get your head out your ass for starters, because that's what all the politics tells you. It's like, that's what they think. The politicians in America. Everyone wants a green card. Everyone wants... I don't want to live in America. No, thank you. I like England. Thank you. If you give me the option, I'm actually quite happy that I have the luxury of England. I also have grandparents that one was Irish, so I could get an Irish passport, which is something I'm going to pursue later. So I can get dual national citizenship, which opens up the whole of Europe to me as well. And of course, Ireland. So I have the potential to have the freedom of the UK, Ireland, and the entirety of Europe. I'd rather have that than the freedom of America, thank you. And that's me personally. I'm not trying to hurt America, but just saying, not all of us aspire for that privilege. So the idea that we enter there and we want to overstay our visa, we don't want to overstay shit. You just want to live in peace. It's like crazy. Oh, anyway.
I said I would.
So let's have a look at this. There is one I just wanted to get across. Let me just pause this, hopefully. Right, so before we move on to the other videos, I really wanted to get this because I wasn't sure. Yeah, I hadn't faved it, so I haven't faved all the videos. A lot of videos. If anyone's truly interested, go on my TikTok, go through my repost, and you'll see an awful lot of content. This one here is the one I'm talking about that woman. Like I said, I couldn't remember. Yeah, LAPD shoots rubber bullet at woman trying to get to her apartment. Now, you're going to have to look at this yourself. Maybe you'd have to go full screen, but she's just here. Oh, you can't see on my screen. I don't know why it's not got the mouse cursor available. Let me just see if I've got it set. Oh, it's not giving me the option. Okay, well, anyway. Oh, I've lost it now. Oh, wait a minute. Why have we lost it? There you go, back again. Right, so she's the one to the right-hand side, just above this play button, over near the fence, like a little white sign. And then you've got a line of police officers. She just wants to get to her apartment, apparently, from this thing.
But that's a public sidewalk.
That she, on her own, she's obviously not a threat.
They're telling her to move. Watch, if they shoot her.
They're just trigger happy American police and things. They've got like this inferiority complex or superiority complex. There's this victimization. It's almost like they say the ones that maybe were bullied like to have power and then they abuse it. They literally so trigger happy. It's like unreal. They've got no compassion for people at all. That's sick, isn't it? Like I just said, where's she going now? Now she's walking off. Where's she going? If her apartment's here, where the hell is she going? They couldn't give a shit.
Holy
Why do Americans, especially those in office, think that the rest of us want to be in that environment? Everybody has their own unique incidents, but I've never had issues with police and things in my life. I'm not someone that goes around causes havoc in general, in everyday life. I'll speak on topics, but I have respect for that level of authority, you know? But in America, I think it's very shady as shit. And I would be very apprehensive about dealing with them because I wouldn't trust them an inch. I don't trust the American authority at all. And that says an awful lot about the society that's built over there. Now, I don't say that to be horrible about Americans. I'm talking about the rule of law there and the hierarchy, the establishment. I don't trust any of it in America at all. And it seems to be there's certain people in power who just, you know, they've got authority, but others that try to circumvent their authority. And it's crazy how that happens. Only in America, shall we say. Wow. This is funny. Let's see what the video is because I haven't seen this in a little bit. Someone's commented, she sounds like a teacher speaking to a student who hasn't done a bit of homework or work all school year. Trump is a global disgrace. She talked to him like a child, and yet he still doesn't understand. This is the point. These people will play dumb. They'll either play dumb or they're just thick as shit, and they've been put there as puppets for Trump.
point here is to follow the law as it is written. And I'm asking what I think is a pretty simple question.
Oh, this is funny. I'm going to let it play. But this is apparently the director of the IRS. So he used to deal with like tax and everything in America. And it's the case of a president should not have influence on audits and people's finances and things like that. That should be up to the Internal Revenue Service to sort of instigate those audits and finish them. You know, so if they establish something needs to be audited, then they should see it through, and it should be up to them to determine who to target, not a president who's got an agenda. And this is what she's getting at. That's literally his role, and this is literally it says the director of the IRS, which is like the head of the IRS. Now watch how stupid he looks, and he looks thick.
Can the President of the United States legally tell the IRS to change someone's nonprofit status?
I'm not able to answer.
You can't read these words and tell what those words say?
I can read the statute, and I did.
All right, then tell me what they mean. What does it mean to say that a person, an applicable person here, that's the president, right?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Cannot directly or indirectly, right?
I'm sorry. Just before we get on, I want to put the picture in people's head because I think it's important. Even if he was just a supervisor of a company, not even just like high up, and you had to, let's say it's a new recruit, and you had to get them just to do some admin duties. Can you just sort these papers out? Just like, we're just looking for these like number patterns or something. We just want them there, and if just put them in, just sort them into certain order. Something. It's a simple task. It shouldn't be too complicated. Now imagine this guy, and I wouldn't trust him to do that, and yet it says he's the director of the IRS. That's a lot of power for someone who seems like a buffoon.
Tell any officer or employee, that would be you, of the Internal Revenue Service to conduct or terminate an audit or other investigation of any particular taxpayer. What part do you not understand here?
It seems to be a nonprofit. I don't see exactly what it refers to.
Any taxpayer to start an investigation of any taxpayer.
If it's illegal, I'm not going to allow it to happen in my IRS.
Is it illegal?
Me and you will be friends then.
I broke down when he said this. Me and you'll be friends then. Like, I won't put up with no illegal activities, pretty much what he's saying. If I see any of this, but that tells you that he's either a buffoon and he's not seeing the issues, or he's just stupid. I don't really know. He's either corrupt or he's just stupid, you know? And it's hilarious that he's going, if I find any issues, I won't put up with it. It's like, yeah, but you're actively doing it now.
I want to be your friend anyway, but we will be on the same page. I'm going to follow the law, and if that's point blank the law.
What do you understand the law to be saying about the president telling the IRS in his dealings with any particular taxpayer? What do you understand this law to be saying?
I think it sounds like it's saying what you're saying, but I've got a little bit of the section here, and I talked to an attorney that used to be at the IRS and now going to maybe be back at the IRS, and I'm sorry if I don't have the answer.
What? You mean the lawyers told you they couldn't understand this?
The what?
The lawyers told you they couldn't understand this?
I didn't say that.
Well, then tell me, what part do you not understand? It says no person, and you said that's the president, that includes the president, cannot instruct any officer, that would be you, of the IRS to conduct or to terminate an audit or other investigation for any particular taxpayer.
I don't intend to let anybody direct me to start audit for political reasons or any other type of reason.
Does that include the President of the United States?
That's anyone.
Can you
anyone.
say yes, that the President of the United States cannot tell the IRS what to do?
I can tell them they're not going to tell me what to do. I can't speak for if there's other agents at the IRS that you're talking about, but I'm telling you what I don't want to have happen in my IRS.
You know, Mr. Long, you'd have a lot more credibility if you just say yes. It's clear that the statute makes it illegal for the president to direct the IRS vis-a-vis any particular taxpayer. And the fact that you want to sit there and dance around about this tells me that you shouldn't be within 1,000 miles of the directorship of the IRS.
It must be really infuriating. I can't. I can only imagine this is probably the worst thing ever. Trying to have an intelligent conversation with buffoons or corrupt people. It's just they dance around. They don't answer a question. It's like it's unreal. At least be honest and transparent. But they can't. Like we explained at the beginning. So you end up with these really stupid conversations where they just come across as really stupid. It's unreal. And they just seem to think by not saying it, that people won't notice. And the reality is, to be honest, to their credit, some people are that stupid. Like I said at the beginning, you got the idiots, they'll literally believe that. They'll go, because where I said, like, why aren't they saying anything? People will say, because there's nothing to say. That it's like, they obviously haven't done anything wrong. They're so stupid. It's like the monkey brain, you know? But you can't get through to them people, you know? They're just delusion. They wonder why, like, the world's shit and they don't understand why and they're supporting the wrong party, you know? Crazy people.
I couldn't care.
This guy is so unlikable. I can't handle him. But let's see what he's got to say. This is Trump reacts to actors boycotting his attendance. So he went to a performance of Les Miserables. Now I don't know the play itself, but from my understanding, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's to do with Renaissance France. It's about protesting against the establishment and stuff, which kind of like makes it funny because he's the establishment. And there's another video on that later, and it's quite funny, I think, because it's like it's lost on him. I think he just likes the dictatorial side of it all.
Essentially boycotting tonight.
Who is?
It's been reported that some actors may be boycotting tonight.
I couldn't care less, honestly. All I do is run the country well. The economic numbers, you saw them today, they're setting records. We took $88 billion
They're setting record lows.
in tariffs in 2 months.
This
Far
guy.
beyond what anybody expected. There's no inflation. People are happy. People are wealthy. The country is getting back to strength again. That's
We're
what
gonna see all the protests in a minute. The real problem is with the politicians is they speak out their arse, but they think by saying it makes it true. It's a really weird delusional state they have, and whenever they're challenged, they don't like it. So there's a guy in a minute we're going to see a little bit later, and he actually says it directly to him, all the lies, and Trump just ignores him. He didn't like it, and it's like exactly you kiss his ass, he loves you for it. If you tell him the truth, he'll blank you. And he won't believe it at all. These people are nuts. They're literally so delusional. But people have to raise awareness to this shit.
That's what I care about. And we're going to have a safe country. We're not going to have what would have happened in Los Angeles. Remember, if I wasn't there, if I didn't act quickly on that, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground right now. I couldn't care less.
Los Angeles had it under control. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. And now since then, a judge has actually ordered that he overstepped his authority. He didn't have the authority to do that because there's a set of criteria he must follow. And the requirements didn't reach those thresholds, which meant that Los Angeles, like in California, it hadn't reached that threshold that he's talking about. But he talks out of his ass to make it relevant. He's so stupid.
Triggered during her latest White House press briefing.
It's almost like he's so stupid he could be smart, but he could never be smart. Yes, is it the press secretary? She's just as unlikable as Trump, and she's going to find herself. I think she'll find herself in more bother than Trump because whatever landmine he sets, she has to just approve of. So she has to sort of like just agree all the time, and it looks like she agrees. It looks like it's coming from her too. So there'll be policies that she might not agree with personally, but she's the face of it. So again, where does she go after all this is finished? Because most of the country is going to absolutely hate her. She's so unlikable. And it's you've got 4 years of fame, effectively, and then you're going to have the rest of your life trying to pick the pit. What do you do? You're going to work the farm where the immigrants worked, and now because there's no one to do it, you're going to go back and work on the farm. Are you going to do it? I find that just as curious what they do next, because a lot of politicians, they go into media, they go and work for the newspapers and things. Who really wants to hire her when she's been so horrible to the media companies anyway? Like, what newspaper's going to hire that? So I find that quite curious, but she's really horrible.
At multiple points, but she got particularly pissed towards the end, where she had a heated back and forth with a reporter about Donald Trump's censorious instincts, prompting her to storm off stage in rage and end the briefing. All right, friends, Carolyn Leavitt is at it again. I'm going to play actually the last part first, okay, because it's such a beautiful insight into Lion Leavitt's entire worldview. She can't handle any pushback whatsoever from the press, who call her and her boss out for their bad faith dishonesty and their censorious impulses.
On the domestic side, you were just asked about the First Amendment rights issues. In the president's comments yesterday, though, he just said protesters would be strongly dealt with. In your list before, you referred to insurrectionists, rioters, and protesters together. Obviously, they're quite different from your earlier answer. I'm struck by the fact that the president has not at any point said the most important thing here is to protect the First Amendment rights of peaceful protesters. So I'm wondering, where in his hierarchy of interests does he place that? Is the First Amendment protection the most important? Is stopping violence most important? Why is he not out saying all peaceful protesters will be protected?
I think two things can be important at the same time. And the president, as I just answered, supports the right of Americans to peacefully protest. He supports the First Amendment. But that is not the majority of the behavior that we have seen taking place in Los Angeles. We have seen mobs of violent rioters and agitators assaulting law enforcement officers, assaulting our federal immigration authorities. And we have seen, as I said, this goes back to what this administration is trying to do and accomplish, and that's enforcing law and order in our nation's communities. And it's removing public safety threats from communities in Los Angeles.
You're saying the majority have not been peaceful, the majority have been violent.
I just read for you the arrest numbers. We've arrested nearly 400 illegal aliens alone, just illegal aliens.
Illegal aliens. That's a broad statement as well, because I've seen reports that some people, they literally had, there was one person that's married. I don't think I've got the video here. Again, it might be on my repost. There's one person who they got a green card for 2 years because they established, they come as on a, I can't remember if it's a work visa. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they got married or, so they got a 2-year visa and they had to extend it after that. But there was some sort of clause in it that needed to be removed. I don't know. It's so many admin shits. And I just think something so stupid like that, like, why do you have to go through a process to remove it? Why ain't it automatic? America's so annoying as shit with everything. It's set to make you fall. It's crazy. But anyway, so he's had to go, and he didn't realize, because he apparently didn't get messages and stuff. He didn't realize he was on the list for deportation. Like, he was going to get deported, even though he's established in America. He already had his green card. He was just getting it. He was just changing the stats to make it more of a long-term situation now. And because he hadn't made an adjustment thing on time, which was just before that date expires, he was put on that list. So as he attended court, they were waiting for him, and so I don't know. I think they detained him. It's a whole process with that. So when they say all these numbers, it's like a lot of them are just everyday people, though. This is not the criminal side of it. And if you look in the UK, for instance, if you compare the UK and America, like in the UK, a lot of the problems people have with migrants coming over to the UK, they're coming across the channel from France a lot of the time. So they'll either jumping on the back of lorries, coming through the Eurotunnel, or they're actually going on dinghies and all sorts, trying to get across the channel. So what's happening there is, of course, then they're looking to get benefits, they look to get payments from the government to sustain them, and then a lot of them get housing. So there's those housing, it makes a deficiency in the social housing for natives. So it's really hard to get on the list to actually help to actually get a home. So a lot of people struggle, they have to live with family members all the time. So you can understand the resentment, although I don't, I think the world should be fair, stop looking down at people. But from that point, I can understand to a degree. Now, a lot of people used to say they're taking all the jobs. They're not taking all the jobs because, but what they're doing, they have, in all honesty, for the most part, there are situations where the wages have gone down in certain sectors. And like, even I noticed it with things like overtime, and the rates have dropped, the rates dropped and things, because a lot of people from, like, it's not even it's not even illegal immigrants. It might be someone from Poland. It's from the Eastern European countries. They come here, the currency's higher, and they can work here for a few years. They go back and they can buy themselves a house because the currency's higher once it goes back over to those countries. So they'll actually go and do the overtime and things, and they get a lower. So they're more than willing to do it at base rate rather than time and a half and double time and stuff. So it does undermine, So there are things, and I can understand that. In America, I don't think you have the same problem. I don't know for sure, but I don't think it's the same problem. So I think I'm looking at people. I'm looking at the ones that work on the farm. I'm looking at the ones that do construction. I'm thinking, who's it hurting? They're working, they're paying their taxes, so they're contributing to society. They're not draining anyway. And if they're working, one would assume then they're renting or they've got a mortgage. I'm assuming renting, but either way, I wouldn't assume it's at the detriment of everyday Americans. Like, working on a farm, does the average American want to go and work on the farm? So what threat is it, apart from to the establishment and the feeling of feeling powerful? Stop looking down at people. It's like they're not hurting anyone. So when she says illegal aliens, it's like, come on, stop calling them aliens. Stop looking down at people. I can understand the document. Why not help them get the right documents then? Why not assess people, what they're doing, and then actually help encourage them to establish? It's like, it's not hurting. I don't get it myself, but
aliens who have been arrested in these riots since June 6th, since they began.
Thousands of people on the streets.
Yeah, and we've had hundreds of people who have assaulted law enforcement officers. Are you saying that that's that's appropriate behavior?
No, I think personally the statistics are probably warped, and I think where they're saying hundreds of people, it's probably not hundreds of people. It's just that maybe one person's thrown a brick or one person's shot a firework, and rather than just arrest that person, they've gone and arrested a group. And it might be no one else had involvement. They were protesting peacefully. So the fact that we've already seen it with the LAPD, they're just shooting people with freaking rubber bullets. I saw one guy had 3 around his abdomen. You can literally see it. Like the mark, the scarring was huge. And one person in the comments said, "I'm an I don't know. They work in a hospital." And they said, like, if they see this, mate, they need to get that. I need to go to the hospital because you can get internal bleeding from that. These police officers are incredibly heavy-handed. It's actually outrageous. So the idea that everybody's a suspect is crazy. The law enforcement should be held accountable just as well. So her idea that sending in the military and these other people, it's like you're just escalating a problem. It's just escalation. They're just idiots.
Are you saying that the president should take action? The Democrat governor and the Democrat mayor of Los Angeles have failed their citizens. And the majority of Americans, the majority of Californians, do not want to see law enforcement officers being...
Why would she make it political then? She didn't say the governor and the mayor. She said the Democrat and the Democrat governor, Democrat mayor. Because it's a different party to the Republicans, they're making a whole political point. I don't see how that's got anything to do with the disorder.
Being assaulted in the streets. And thankfully, the president took action and stepped in to protect our federal law enforcement agents, to protect federal buildings, to protect the federal mission.
He's a hero.
Deporting illegal criminals off of our streets. And that mission will continue every day as far as we're concerned. Thank you, guys.
Damn. She was pissed. She was so pissed that she was fumbling over her words. And listen, again, I've said this before and I'll say this again. There's no doubt that Carolyn Leavitt is talented. She is the best White House press secretary that Donald Trump has had in the worst possible way, right? She is the most effective at her nefarious job, but she can't handle any sort of pushback. And even there, like her reasons, when she claims the majority of the protesters were violent and a majority of the protests were violent. And so
the reason she can't handle the pushback, in my opinion, is because they know they're lying all the time. So they don't want to be challenged on their lies because it opens a can of worms. As soon as someone challenges it, she just gets pissy because she just wants to end it. Let me speak, and then no one says anything because it's like, then what she says holds weight. That's what it comes down to. Plus, she's probably insecure and she's just trying to project strength. Oh, now we've just lost the whole freaking lot.
So the reporter pushed back. Well, wait, really? There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of protesters all throughout Los Angeles triggered during her...
It's crazy, isn't it? Thousands of protesters. She's making the point about hundreds. Yeah. So this one's about the flight over India where it crashed. It was like I don't know if it was landing though, because to me it looked like it was trying to land, but I'm not sure. I might have it the wrong way because they were saying 1 minute after takeoff, but to me it looked like it was landing, and then it's trying to lift up. Unless it lifted off and it was struggling. I'm really not sure. I don't really want to watch that one too much, to be totally honest.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked about...
Oh, this one's absolutely hilarious. So she's calling out the BBC as a media resource, as liars, and the fact that they can't even get their facts straight because they changed their facts. And this is the BBC clarifying what that person's saying and pointing her out to be a liar. And then by the very end, it was shown that she doesn't even fact check because look where she gets her sources from. It was funny. She gets her sources from social media, like in terms of like the exact phrasing and all these things. And there's literally like it's fact. It's crazy. It wasn't even literally researched.
Reports that Israeli forces had killed Palestinians near an aid distribution center in Gaza. Her reply was an attack on the BBC and was repeatedly false.
We don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak, unlike the BBC, who had multiple headlines. They wrote, Israeli tank kills 26, Israeli tank kills 21, Israeli gunfire kills 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident, and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything.
This contains a mix of misrepresentations and untruths. When speaking, Caroline Leavitt held up a printout. It showed a post on X by a student activist. Its focus and hers was the BBC's coverage on Sunday. Residents had reported Israeli fire near an aid centre. Over the course of the day, the BBC repeatedly updated its coverage, as is standard on a breaking news story. Updated claims on fatalities were all clearly attributed to a number of sources in Gaza, including the Red Cross, which is an independent organisation. Sourcing like this is standard when a story is evolving and details are hard to confirm. It's also a necessary aspect of covering this conflict, given Israel doesn't allow international news organisations into Gaza. During the press conference, Caroline Levitt also had this particular criticism.
Unfortunately, unlike some in the media, we don't take the word of Hamas with total truth.
But BBC News didn't do that. It did quote the Hamas-run health ministry with clear attribution. The ministry, which is part of the Hamas-controlled government, is the main source of official information when it comes to casualties in Gaza. The BBC also reported statements it received from the Israel Defense Forces, which called the reports false and urged the media to be cautious. Caroline Levitt also made this claim.
They had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything.
This isn't true. The BBC didn't take down any of its coverage on this story. The articles remain online. And Caroline Levitt attributed this false claim to what she called a review of footage. That appears to be a reference to this BBC Verified live page post that looked at a widely shared video that some were claiming showed events near the aid centre. Using geolocation, BBC Verified confirmed that the video actually showed a different event, several kilometres away. This wasn't a BBC video being assessed, it wasn't a retraction, it wasn't a BBC admission of error. The live page post had been highlighted by the same ex-account Caroline Levitt had referenced. It misrepresented what BBC Verify had done. The White House then repeated the misrepresentation. For its part, the BBC says it stands by its journalism and has called once again to be allowed access to Gaza. Having made this range of false claims, Caroline Levitt had a further point to make.
We're going to look into reports before we confirm them from this podium or before we take action. And I suggest that journalists who actually care about truth do the same to reduce the amount of misinformation that's going around the globe on this front.
But in this case, either the White House didn't look into its claims about the BBC before bringing them to the podium, or had no concern that they weren't true.
So she tried to criticise the media in the end, and it was like backfired because she didn't even do research. So I want to make the point now, actually, because I noticed something. When you see video footage of the protests and things, it's like you can't always guarantee it's accurate. Like it might be an old video from a previous protest. It was a riot a decade ago, 5 years ago. I can't remember when the last one was. But also they could be in different areas. Like there was one I saw earlier, and people were going, "Yeah, we're in support of Los Angeles and from Philadelphia and all these things," because obviously it's happening around America. But I looked at it and I just thought, that isn't any of them places. You can literally see, because I just noticed straight away, I was looking at different things. And I thought, that's in China. You can literally see the road signs in China. Why would a Chinese road sign be in LA or Philadelphia? That wasn't even to do with that. And yet the whole comment section, so there was no point me sort of pointing it out in the comment section, because only one person can see it. They were all thinking it. And that's where misinformation can go. So you have to be careful with social media.
I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. You're asking me for what the president's justification is for these tariffs. It's not up to you. You're not the president, Gabe.
To hire a spokesperson just so that Elon Musk doesn't put out tweets that then confuse federal workers.
Are my press briefings not good enough for you, Jackie? John.
Goldberg's intentions. Do you believe
Jennifer,
that he
go
would
ahead.
release that to embarrass the administration ahead of the worldwide threats?
Jennifer, go ahead. Philip.
On my follow-up on what you had just said.
No, go ahead, Philip. Caitlin, I'm not taking your follow-up. Philip, go
I have
ahead.
a follow-up on something you just said, though, Caroline. That's
Caitlin,
regarding
I'm not
Jeffrey
taking
Goldsberg.
your follow-up. Philip, go ahead. I have called on you.
Is there any evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out.
Okay,
Sean.
on the flight.
Two different things. Foreign terrorist, illegal immigrant criminal. Two different things, two different definitions. You should look them up. Christian, go ahead. To the woman in the purple, because I saw you were making a face at my previous answer. So what's going on?
Some of those cabinet members were caught off guard by the email.
Nobody was caught off guard.
The cabinet secretaries and others have said that they were not aware that this was happening.
I would reject the premise of your question, Jeff. The cabinet secretaries have not said that. Does anyone have any questions for Patty or for me?
This is the best bit. Look at their hands up. Multiple people with their hands up.
Anybody? We'll see you all later. The president will be at his dinner later this evening.
Now, that we don't know if it's edited, because you can't say for sure. They put their hands up. That could be an edited video. I don't know. But just the way her demeanor is and the way she behaves. And she's the same as Trump. Don't like something? I'm not listening. I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to ignore you. They're wild.
Does anyone have
But she fits him perfect the way she is.
any questions for Patty or for me?
Right.
No?
This I would trust now, because this is where you get official sources. So the last one was...
I think
I'm
it's...
not sure who it is, but this one's the
Does any-
Huff Post. I don't think it's called Huffington Post. I don't really know. I've heard of them before. But anyway, they've got the blue tick. They are an established media. So for them to post that and have that, I would trust that. For me, that's far more verified than just a random person sharing it. So it says Press Secretary Caroline Levitt ignored reporters after asking if there were any more questions. She obviously didn't want questions or didn't like them specific people.
Anyone have any questions for Patty or for me? No?
I have a question.
No? Anybody? Okay. We'll see you all later. Does anyone have any...
She's so rude. It's crazy. Right, this is interesting. So this is on the roof. This is the immigrants now. You can see they're the enforcement agents who are looking to deport them potentially. So, of course, they've got no... Why would they want to get off the roof then if you're just going to sort of detain them? But you just look and think, who else is going to do this work? You know, of course they're probably workers, but if they're going to charge extortionate rates, I know you could argue they're undermining the local trade, but maybe the local trade is taking advantage of other people, you know. But I just always think, I can't help but think from a human point of view, like, what are they doing that's harmful? They're literally going to work. They're not being criminals. What's the problem? Why can't you support them and help them establish themselves? Why can't they build a life where they want to be? It's all privilege, you know. I hate this. It's racism and privilege. People who have privilege, they just don't care about other people's issues. Everything's about them. It's just narcissism. It all comes down to that. You can't, like I said at the very beginning, you can't educate an idiot. But you know, I mean, people with like a moral compass can have compassion for other people, and I can have compassion for these people, and I recognise they're working, and I don't see what a problem with them is living there.
Salió madre, nos cayó la migrecito, miren. Aquí nos están cazando dos amarillos aquí.
The only thing I would say is maybe if you say it this way, let's say if they was to establish themselves and they have the right to vote, maybe they go Democrats instead of Republicans. So that's a threat to Trump and his party. So they wants to get them out. That's the only other thing you could say. Is it a threat to their voting? Makes you wonder. So that's that one.
We inherited.
Oh, this was great. It's the economist. It's the Treasury Secretary. It's the one to do with the finances of America.
This fiscal situation that I believe.
So like they always like to do, they like to blame Biden. So this is what this one's about. Let's blame Biden. Remember, Trump was in charge before Biden.
Well, you inherited from Donald Trump, who was here. You did, Mr. Bessett.
No,
yes,
sir.
You did, Mr. Bessett.
No,
you inherited from Donald Trump. He's the first president to come back after a 4-year hiatus, after we know exactly what the last tax cuts did, which was blow a massive hole in our deficit and debt. You can't sit here and lie about that. It's true. The data, to coin a phrase, the data shows that that's the result. The math shows that that is the result.
Everyone's just getting fed up with the lies. That's the thing. People are getting called out on it. They like to talk around it. And I mean, a lot of the senators and the congressmen, I think it's the Senate. What does it say? It doesn't say where it is, but a lot of time it is, and they're getting called out because they have to be accountable, and they're really losing it with these lately. They're just not even allowing them to div around. It's good.
So I'm gonna.
Oh, this is the last one. I think I found this one quite disgusting myself. Some people will like it, and you'll see it in the comments going, "The law enforcement," and to some degree you agree, but there were certain points I just thought this is the real problem with the law enforcement in America. They don't care about people's life. People can do things that maybe you don't agree with, but they deserve to lose their life for it. Like, do you value life at all? And these people with guns and power don't seem to care at all. So, like, eventually, let's say someone's doing something bad, you can shoot them. Why always shoot to kill? Why can't you shoot to disarm if you have to shoot? Like, why has it always got to be a fatality? Now, listen to what he says, because he makes the point that if someone spits at them, this is what they said, they'll be returning in a grave. That's what they said. I think it was something like that. And I'm quoting that because I heard him say it. If it's not that, it's very close to that. If they get spat on. Now, I'm not saying spitting at someone's really a nice thing to do. And it's pretty disgusting and vile. But going as fast to try to is to justify killing someone. That's a big step from that to that, surely. Well, anyway, and he even said something about like running people over, all sorts of shit. So it's like, but like people love this because they don't give respect for other people. But again, if you're doing criminal activity, okay, shit, you're not having. But then, what do you determine is criminal activity? So what one person says is criminal activity, someone else might feel it's justifiable. It's not a criminal act. It's my right to protest, for instance. So they might say you're not rioting, you're not protesting, you're rioting. The difference. Just because maybe you're literally protesting and people around you are maybe doing some dodgy shit and they're causing havoc, doesn't mean you're doing that. But now because you're in the vicinity, you're rioting. You see the discrepancy. So, and that's the thing with the arrests. So where they say we've had hundreds of arrests, a lot of them are going to be innocent. I saw it yesterday where we may better get some reposts up because there was these reporters that were the press. They were part of the ones getting corralled and they were actually worried. One of them I was watching, I think it was on the live stream. I don't watch a lot of live streams, but when it was showing the protest, I do watch some of the live streams to get a grasp of what's going on. And the guy didn't have his pass. He couldn't find his press pass. So that means the police were about to arrest him with everybody else. But fortunately, at the very last moment, he found his pass and they allowed him through. And then they arrested the others. But it's like it come that close to getting arrested as well. And it's like you could be doing journalism and things. You might just be freelancing, all sorts. It's like you're not even causing trouble. But they'll literally pigeonhole you and you'll be part of the statistics, which means you can't trust the statistics. Now, anyway, forget all the statistics. Let's listen to this guy's lack of care for humanity. Now, you might agree on certain sectors, but just think how tough they're being. Like in terms of life, they're not caring about life at all. They're not caring about life at all. It's like if someone does anything, if anyone just blows wind near us, we will kill you. That's literally how they're talking. It's like, God damn, you're so scared of anything. These people, man, are just going to literally there to serve and protect. I think they're forgetting what they're there for. They're literally an officer sworn in to serve and protect, but it's really to serve and protect the people, surely, the communities. So who are they protecting when they're saying they're going to shoot people? Crazy. And I wonder why people don't have respect for them.
Break it down for you, all right? And if somebody wants to know what I mean by turn violent, all right, this is what I mean.
Wait, before we get there, because I do want to make the point, I don't want to keep cutting it off, so we're going to let it play. But people put all our law enforcement across the country should act just like this. Need more folk like this in charge. Someone's put protest is all right, someone's put rioting isn't. It's like, yeah, but they didn't say rioting. What did I just say? That this thingy? They never said anything about rioting. The other person made that point. Real cops, real leaders. Where was this guy January 6th? Every state should be like Florida. Need this kind of leadership in California.
So I'm gonna break it down for you.
Let's have a listen now.
And if somebody wants to know what I mean by turn violent, all right, this is what I mean. If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. If you block an intersection or a roadway in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired because we are going to run.
If you block an intersection, I understand if it's an intentional block, but what if your car breaks down legitimately? Like, these are little things. And I think that as well when they do curfews. It's like, what if you're actually stranded or you've got somewhere to be? It's like, what do I do? Anyway, let's go back here. I don't want to keep interrupting. I just want people to think.
Flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us.
Okay, so he wasn't sending you to the graveyard, but if you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and then jail. So you're not just going to get arrested. We're gonna harm you. We're gonna beat you up at the bare minimum. You're definitely going to hospital if you spit, even though they've got riot shields. So if you spit and it hits our riot shields effectively, we are going to beat the living shit out of you, best believe. Then you go jail. That's even. These people, man. And other people love them for it. Crazy.
And in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at because we will kill you graveyard dead. We're not going to play. This has got to stop. You're watching what's taking place out there. You're seeing police officers that are being attacked, being spit on, being put in harm's way just for doing their job.
I'm not condoning things because, people shouldn't be in those places if you're going to do those sort of things. But the problem is when they articulate it in this way, and you see a lot of the racism that's happened across America, and especially through the police, the corruption that exists, you can sort of understand why people don't respect them. I'm not saying don't respect them because, that we should be all respecting authorities and things, but they're not giving you reason to respect them. And that's really the problem. You're going to come out with these threats over some of it are quite minor. Now, I'm not saying it's good, but it's that the punishment doesn't necessarily fit the crime. Now, yeah, if you're pointing a gun at someone, but again, why can't you disarm someone? Why have you always got to kill everybody? That's the thing with America and everybody that has power. They go on power trips. It's just crazy. This isn't fair. This isn't right. You can disarm people. They're already outnumbering people anyway.
Jobs.
Why are they so
You're
scared?
seeing ICE agents that are being targeted for doing their jobs, and you're seeing obstructionists that are doing all of this, standing in the way of law and order.
This is the double standards, though. Trump's talking about now the fact that if the people are protesting, you can't cover your face because they want to be able to identify you and arrest you. But yeah, he's saying it's now becoming, it's going to be crime, and other people are saying it's against your amendments. It's, you can't. It's not. I can't remember what they call it now, but yeah, they're saying it's not. He can't enforce that. So I find it quite curious that there's this double-edged sword here. He's saying the ICE agents are just doing their job. It's like, yeah, but you just to what extent? There's ways you can go about it. You're just destroying families. Are you doing it in the most inhumane way? There was one woman who. She was 9 months pregnant. I saw a video yesterday, and she was speaking and said that she's had a miscarriage. So she was detained aggressively. Who knows where they've taken her, how they treated her, and she had a miscarriage because of it. So she's lost her child because of them. So you can understand why people don't respect them. You can understand. I can understand that. And the fact that you're saying the average person, the everyday person, can't cover their face, so you can identify them. Yet you've got the ICE agents who are covering their face. So you can't identify them. So they can have their identities protected, but no one else can. The double standards. So you're saying it's bad for them, but it's okay for them? And the people are not turning up in Humvees, are they? Bulletproof, all sorts of shit, fatigues, covering their face like they're just on a military mission. They're acting like they're going after Osama bin Laden. That's how it is. They're literally coming into communities like they're on a mission in Iraq. That's what it looks like. So you can understand why people are a bit pissed about that. This is not a democracy. This is not like a normal way of living here. This is out of control. And that's Trump.
Not here, not in the state of Florida. So to make it real simple, if you don't want to have any of those things happen to you, obey the law. Go protest all you want. Do it peacefully. Stand on the mountaintops and yell your opinion, your views. We invite that. But don't you dare break the law.
Go stand on mountaintops. Effectively, I don't even know if there are mountains in Florida. Thinking about it, like he's saying, the state of Florida. Are there mountains in Florida? That'd be an interesting one. I don't think there are. I'm pretty sure it's low terrain in Florida. Could be wrong. But effectively, what he's saying is, if you're going to protest, then stay out of the way, stay far out of the way, so we can't see you. So you're literally screaming to the air. Otherwise, we might consider it a riot. Now, I might be putting words into his mouth, but the way he's just said it there, do it from the mountaintops. They might not be literal, but I think they are. And I've just said that there's a discrepancy between protests and riots. And so they could easily just say it's part of a riot when it's not. Now, I've done on my website somewhere, I actually did an article where I said about, let me see if I can get that. I did it ages ago. So I did some articles quite a long time ago, back in 2023, so 2 years ago. I was doing articles on my website, and some of them, it's about various things. One was freedom, USA as an identity crisis. This was even 2 years ago. So one is freedom there, but I also did one on protests and anarchy. And I had a dim view. Now, this is where I say about our evolution. We change our opinions a bit, and it's because society evolves. So I had a negative opinion of protests, because I always noticed that protests, for the most part, tend to, they do, or quite often, it gets out of control, and you lose the message, and it becomes riots. So I don't tend to agree with protests, but now I watch, and you realise that when you've got, let me just get rid of this just for a minute because the background goes funny on my thing. When you've got leaders, authority, and they don't listen to the everyday person. It's like, what can you do? Because you've even got people in power, like senators, for instance. They're questioning all the president's advisors, anyone that's been given like prominence, whether it's the Treasury Secretary, the Defense Secretary, the Press Secretary, whatever they're doing, they'll question them on situations. Not the Press Secretary, but of course, if there was ever if Trump was ever impeached, then maybe he will have to. But yeah, anyway, they are questioning, and they're not even getting answers. So if it reaches a point where there's no justice, it's like, what avenues have you got left? We can speak publicly, but it falls on deaf ears. Eventually, people have to speak up and group up. And I think that's quite prominent. So my opinion on protesting has now changed. So I'm curious what I said then, to be honest, because that's what I'm saying. Like, our opinion on things can change. We can evolve. It's probably not my best writing. As we do, we evolve. Let's see what I said, because I want to see if it makes sense now. The UK and USA are so intertwined within each other. There's a camaraderie like no one else understands us as we do, and that transcends beyond cultures and into our way of life. When America protests, it rapidly spreads to the UK streets, even though it's not relevant to our society in most cases. I find it annoying how quickly people jump on the bandwagon without a moment's thought. I'm not in favour of protesting on the streets. In most cases, it ascends into anarchy with arson, looting, and communities destroyed, the entire opposite of what was intended. There are always a select few who ruin it for everyone else. And again, people jump on the wagon by joining in with the chaos. There are better ways to convey a message and instigate change from blogging, social media, and meetings. I'm not naive enough to think that protesting is entirely avoidable, but it should be a last resort rather than a knee-jerk reaction, and no more than a peaceful protest. There's no need for anything to escalate into violence. By being respectful, we earn respect. Anger is only met with outrage from the opposing side. Now, that's not even all of it yet. We'll get back onto that. But now I would change that. So if I'm writing that today, I would actually reflect upon how the police force and, how it's going in LA at the moment, where I'm seeing innocent people being shot with, okay, it's a rubber bullet, but you see the marks it leaves. It actually freaking hurts. You can see it's powerful. So I'm saying there, if you're respectful, you gain respect. But actually, some are so insecure and so power hungry that it's almost like violence is almost inevitable in some situations, which might be as a defense for your own freedom. So maybe that's something that needs to be attached to that. Now, this was an article I wrote 2 years ago, but I'm seeing a variance to my thought process because we evolve. Because I'm seeing that some people are trigger happy. So you can't always act like people are the problem when it actually it's the establishment. I noticed that many protests stem from a lack of faith in governments, there you go, especially in America. I recently read that President Joe Biden intends to convince America to rely less on cars. Even I smiled at the notion. No one can tell an American what to do without it feeling like a conspiracy. Am I wrong? The anti-vaxxers in the UK stemmed from the distrust Americans had in the process. They feel their governments are trying to mind control them into submission. Every aspect of that is frightening. If a government were doing that, then it's because it's lost control of the population. Likewise, if it's not a conspiracy, then Americans have such a lack of trust in their government, they feel they are constantly being attacked. Either way, it's not good. For people in the UK to feel that way makes no sense to me. Politics is shady. We all know that. But I think American politics is frightening because of the vast amounts of money at stake, so one can understand an American conspiracist. The UK doesn't have those same issues, at least such a grand scale. In that regard, reforms in America aren't relevant in the UK. Still, as I said, people go mental when anything is posted on social media, even though it's the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Anyway, so I just thought I'd be transparent there, because I'm not going to sit here and say I am all for protests when for the majority of my life I've actually been against it because of the fact that it tends to turn into riots, and I think then you lose the message. But then I think sometimes it's antagonized to the point where a reaction happens. So there's so many angles to that, of course. Just thought it's quite interesting myself.
We are not pawns.
This was interesting. It's actually someone in military clothing. We are not pawns for Donald Trump's agenda. And hell yeah.
For Donald Trump's agenda. Why now? It's because the military was called upon innocent protesters. We, in our oath to serve, we serve the people of the United States. The Constitution these constitutional rights are being stripped and just denied, and the military will not be pawns to that. So I'm calling upon the conscience of military members who served previously and now. We have a conscience, we have mind, and we have a duty and moral obligation to say no and resist evil. We are not.
And resist evil. That's nice. So literally, she has literally stepped away from her duties to do and decided to stand against it. So that's great. Someone's put, as a retired vet, yes, proud patriot right there. She just threw a military career out the window, someone said, but who gives a shit? Why would you want to be in a military that freaking props up some freaking dictator? Now, this is a true patriot. She's not a pawn to be used by draft dodging grifters. She swore an oath to protect all enemies, foreign and domestic. She knows her place in history. Thank you. Trump is not the Constitution. He is a clear and present danger to America. He does not believe in the Constitution. He is a domestic threat to America. Yeah, okay. Yeah. There you go. As US grocery prices continue to rise, Trump's ICE chases farm workers through produce fields. Yet they've got no one to work them. So well, that's a real good use of resources right there. Attack the people and deport them, those who are helping put food on the table for American homes. Because they are really, really bad people, aren't they? Idiots. Someone's put, this is actually insane. Someone put, yep, they literally just saw a person of colour in a field and said, yep, get them. It's just racist. Of course it is. This was good because it's the LA Fire Department showing support and solidarity with protesters in Los Angeles. Now, you could argue this is propaganda, but I love the fact the sirens are on there and they're actually doing a U-turn. So they actually were doing sort of a parade to support them, which was nice. I will have to turn the music off because it affects my copyright strikes and stuff. But you see, they got us to the line there. Come back. That is great stuff. I'm not sure. The guy's just talking there, so we can move on. So these ones here we have to be careful with because we can't guarantee they are in LA. Just because someone says it is, let's be careful. The fact that it says ICE there is positive because I don't think really the term ICE has been around particularly long. So it would suggest that it could be a different state, different region, unless you're familiar. But I would say it's recent. God, the music's killing me. Anyway, that's a lot of people. This is, oh, wait, this one says Philadelphia City Hall. Now, the buildings look American, don't they? I would assume, looking at that, only because I've seen Rocky. I can only determine it based on that. It gives me that vibe. Because at first I was skeptical, but again, I can't clarify that for sure. You'd have to be from there. Oh, this one says massive anti-Trump protest in New York City today. Now, add that further to the video we saw before, where Trump went to that Les Miserables play, and he said he didn't care about the people who are boycotting, who are not tending. He thinks he's popular in his head. He's popular. He's man of the people. This is the people. Man of what people? The idiot people, the ones we established at the beginning of the video. You know, just the bullies. That's his people, and they're going to be few and far between. They're the thick people. Oh, Christ, I told you the music's killing me. Yeah, you can see that many people. Someone did make a comment somewhere. I did see something said where there should be American flags intertwined in this because it wouldn't. At the moment, this feeds, because the Mexican flags, it does feed into Trump's propaganda. If you put American flags in there, then you can't argue that it's just the Mexicans. Because at the moment, you could argue it's just Mexicans, you know, because that's what they want, you know. It's just crazy. Right, I did not interrupt you. I like these videos. They're so powerful. These are the ones where they're really... I think this is that Hegseth. I think it is. This guy's... they're all unlikable, the one who's challenging. But they do put them in their place lately, and I'm all for it, because they're just losing patience with them.
Not interrupt you, sir. I would appreciate if you let me finish. I am sick and tired of hearing the kind of heated partisan rhetoric, which is one of the reasons why we have such divisions in this country. The attacks we see from the President of the United States of America trolling and dragging judges through is what we should be talking about, that puts people in danger. I'm simply taking issue with the claim that you made at the top that people on the Democratic side of the aisle do not care about the safety and the security of judges and said nothing. You said we were silent after people's houses were protested. That is a patent lie, sir. We were not silent. We took action. We joined in a bipartisan way to protect those judges, as was done in a bipartisan way to protect a New Jersey judge after their horrific attack at their home. So I see you now trying to shift the debate to whether we talk to an attorney general. I'm simply taking issue with this accusation that somehow we Democrats are so bad because we don't call out threats to our to our judicial colleagues. And that is wrong. You could change the argument now that you want, but what you said was patently not true and was, in fact, a patent lie. I did not interrupt you, sir.
Love that. So this is Bruce Springsteen singing. I can't remember where he was now. It does say he's somewhere. Of course, it's somewhere. Yeah, Bruce Springsteen slams President Trump in his admission as corrupt, incompetent, treasonous.
The America that I've sung to you about, that has been a beacon of hope and liberty for 250 years, is currently in the hands of a corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous administration. Tonight, we ask all who believe in democracy and the best of our American experiment to rise with us, raise your voices, stand with us against authoritarianism, and let freedom reign.
Maybe let me ask the question this way so that you can assuage people's concerns that there is a double standard. The National Guard was deployed here on January 6th, and that was a decision made by the Department of Defense.
So when they say January 6th, they're talking about the riots at Capitol Hill, where they actually wanted to break into the Capitol, and they actually from what it seemed, they wanted to kill people who, I don't know if it's the Senate but anyway, very prominent political leaders. It's crazy. And then when Trump became back in office this year, he's pardoned all those people. And I think 4 police officers died, other people got injured, and he's literally just pardoned all of them. Gave them freedom. And yet they actually had violence, but because it was for a cause that he supported, and he was like goading it all on social media at the time, that he considers them patriots. And yet you get people speaking up and doing the protests in Los Angeles, but it's actually going into other states now. And he sees them as a threat to the point when then he sends the National Guard in, and he's like, where's the double standard? These people from my understanding, haven't killed police. But the ones he supports did, and he gave them literally their freedom.
Do you support that decision? Do you believe that that was the right decision to deploy the National Guard?
All I know is it's the right decision to be deploying the National Guard in Los Angeles to defend ICE agents.
I think that speaks to the worry that many Americans have, that there is a double standard, that you are not willing to defend against attacks made on our democracy by supporters of the president, but you are willing to deploy the National Guard to protect against protesters who are criticizing the president. That's not how our taxpayer dollars are supposed to work. They're supposed to be used to defend the United States, no matter the nature of the political affiliation of the protesters. Maybe let me ask the question this way so that you can.
That's exactly what it is.
Donald Trump is getting beaten and outplayed at his own game. Social media trolling. California Governor Gavin Newsom learned all of the lessons of the Trump trolls and
the Newsom content. He's making Trump look stupid, man. He's articulating very well. He's coming across very very authoritative.
Disinformation farms from the wildfire disinformation that Donald Trump and all of his crooked disinformation agents spread. And Newsom was prepared this time around. And Newsom is taking Donald Trump's lies.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure.
Stuff at Gavin Newsom.
I'm not going to go with that.
Let's never forget how the Trump administration bullies. They do it to provoke a response that retroactively excuses their bullying. They did this on purpose.
That's what they always do. So they'll cause a situation, so they'll incite people to be reactive. Then when you react, now they say there's a problem. they caused the problem. So fun. And then they think they're the solution. It's like, you set this up. We always knew they were going to set things up because they wanted to create martial law effectively. And then that gives him the impetus to make new legislations and things. So then he could change the laws of the land, pretty much. You can tell that's what Trump wants to do. Effectively, he wants to make the position of president even more prominent, to become a king. He'll probably change if he could get his way. He'll probably change the fact that there's a limitation on how many elections you can run for. So I think you can only run for office twice. I'm not sure specifically with that, but he'll probably just want to keep it like a tyrant, a dictator, like we see in other countries. Personally, I think if the next president is strong, very strong-willed, I think the best thing they could do is to remove some of the power a president has. But presidents won't, because they want the power. But if you have someone who's actually there to serve the people, and you're actually doing it for America, I think you have to put an executive order in place, just in the way Trump's doing things to favor him. I think the next president has to come in and enforce changes so a president no longer has that level of power. So next time they come in, they can't start ordering things about to the level of extent that Trump has, because he literally wouldn't have the power to do so. It would literally be in the hands of a conglomerate of people like Congress or Senate, whoever's the next tier. But it should be a group of people that have more of a say than one person who's unhinged. And I think the next person needs to establish that, because it's really important for the generations way beyond them. Because this is dangerous. If you get a dodgy president, someone who's on an ego trip, power trip, narcissistic, has the aspirations to be a dictator, a martyr, it just puts the whole country in chaos. It's not just the country, it's affecting the whole world now. You see on that, he's unhinged. So that's what I think needs to happen. But is ever a president going to be strong enough to do that?
Purpose. It was not a misstep by Trump. This was a misstep by Trump.
They're just mocking him.
We have laws.
This is great. Listen to this intently. Back in 2020, 5 years ago, he says this, and then he contradicts himself because he's doing the same thing he said.
We have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that, even in a Portland case. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
Los Angeles, thank goodness we sent out some wonderful National Guard. They've really helped, and a lot of problems they were having out there. They were afraid to do anything, and we sent out the troops, and they've done a fantastic job.
The funny thing is, when he was praising the troops, they hadn't actually been deployed yet, so it doesn't even make sense. But the fact that he's saying, I don't have the authority to do it, and the next time he's the president, he's enacting it. And even now, a judge has literally decided that he overstepped his authority, and that now needs to be overturned. Like they need to leave. So he's messed up. He's losing that political battle.
We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that, even in a Portland case. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
Hundreds of National Guard troops now on the ground, deployed by President Trump, even though state leaders say they didn't ask for them and don't want them there.
We can't.
This is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's the one that posted that. I don't know if he posted the other one. No, he didn't post that one, but he posted that one. That's great.
This is what I know about.
Now, this is interesting. We're going to talk about illegal immigrants now. We're talking about people who enter America, overstay their visa, and they should be deported. That's the rule of law. That's what should happen. Now, this guy tells an awful lot of things like this, where you can do a change of adjustment. And he's going to tell us now about Donald Trump's wife, who is not a native, she's not an American. So where does she come from? How did she get her status? Because it's interesting, isn't it? He wants to deport people, but it's always these people, when they've got an affiliation to someone, they'll protect them. So the double standards, it doesn't sit right, does it? So I was intrigued by this before that. I was sitting there thinking about her myself, and it's like it comes up.
Melania Trump's immigration journey. According to the Associated Press, Melania entered the United States on a tourist visa in August of 1996 and was paid for 10 modeling jobs totaling $20,000 while on that tourist visa.
On a tourist visa, you cannot work. You have to get a work visa. You can't even work even a little bit. You can't touch work at all. You can come on a business visa. I think it's got a B1 and a B2. I think it's the B2 is I might be wrong, but I think the B2 is the work. The B2 visa is the tourist one. Okay, so the B1, maybe it's the B1 that's a one where you can come for business, but you can't work. It's like if you had someone wanted to talk to you about a contract or something, and you're going to do a business meeting. You're not, no one's literally paying you on the spot. You're not earning income while you're there. You're just doing a business deal. That's not work. So you're not gaining money. She come here on a tourist one, which isn't even related to business. It's literally just to go on holiday and visit the country and things. And she's earned modeling jobs totaling $20,000. That is completely against the rules. If you earn even just a little bit, you'd get deported. How the hell is she getting $20,000?
Visa. That is unlawful employment if true, and that is a violation of her tourist visa. And then if that was the case, she should have never have gotten any other immigration benefits after that. But apparently in October of 1996, she changed her status from tourist visa to H-1B visa as a model with distinguished merit and ability, and then subsequently continued to work as a model, built up her portfolio, and then applied for an EB-1 visa as a model of extraordinary ability, and was
to put it into context. That's like me going to America and taking on, let's say it's public speaking or something, or let's say it was a book deal or something. I don't know. Let's say what my talents, things. Let's say that's what I was doing. That's exactly what and then you're earning money, but you never declared it. That is completely wrong. You must do an adjustment of a visa. You must change what it's for before you even look to establish those things. And she didn't do that. And then it's like, let's say you become more famous, more well known for what you do. Then you can apply for a visa that recognizes that. So it gives you just more freedoms. And that's literally what she got, because now all of a sudden she's not just doing a few little jobs as a model. She's becoming a prominent model. That's effectively what all that is. But effectively, she shouldn't have been earning in the first place. She should have been making sure she's got the appropriate visa in place, which deemed her applications inadmissible. She shouldn't have been given them.
Approved for her green card. But presuming she worked unlawfully on a tourist visa, she should never have been allowed to change her status to an H-1B, let alone get her green card or become a citizen. But now that she's a citizen, you can't take it back. This
is Donald Trump's wife. So I think, come on, double standards. Now, this is interesting, because this is a senator now. A senator, for God's sake. He's gone to a press conference with this crazy woman. I think it is her. I'm sure she's the one that keeps turning up with the ICE agents. Something Gnome. I'm sure that's her name. And he was asking questions at a press conference. And I think it's 3 police officers manhandled him. He's a senator. That's all. Like, I'm not saying the levels here, but it's almost like manhandling the president. To that, when you're going lower, you've got Congress and the Senate. So these are really, really important people. To manhandle them like that crosses an incredible boundary. These people, they just got no control. I think they're just on steroids or something. It's just mad. That's literally what America is. It's barbaric. So just consider the fact this guy is high ranking. And now look how they treat him. And the real point is, if you can treat him like that, how do they treat everybody else? Everybody's nothing more than rats and ants to these people,
I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is, a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
How many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty?
That's a senator, by the way. Let's emphasize.
U.S. Senator Padilla, who was violently thrown out of a press conference with Kristi Noem, the director of DHS. I want you to think about how they're treating senators. If they're treating senators like that, publicly, in front of cameras, in front of everyone, how do you think they would treat you? I just want you to think about that for a second here, because they don't care anymore. They're going after anyone and everyone that stands in their way. And that's the upsetting thing, because we are seeing the military being used in a way that it should never been in, and actually made the situation worse. And that senator went there to go ahead and not only express our frustrations, but also his own.
We're going to hear more on this, I think, for other videos.
Do you think political allegiance to Trump?
Right, this is the department. This is the defense secretary is asking questions now. This guy's so unlikable. I mean, they all are really, but he's really annoying.
Is a requirement for serving our nation, either in uniform or a civilian in the department?
I'm incredibly proud, as there are millions of Americans.
No. Not today, Seth. Yes or no?
Congressman, you know what a silly question that is.
But it's silly enough to warrant a very straightforward answer. Yes or no?
We all support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You know what? I'm not going to waste my time anymore. You're not worthy of my attention or my questions. You're an embarrassment to this country. You're unfit to lead. And there's been bipartisan members of Congress that have called for your resignation. You should just get the hell out and let somebody competently lead this department.
Mr. Chairman, do we not have any decorum in here?
Thank you very much. I yield my time.
Gentleman yields back. And I would urge everybody to remember and maintain a decorum suitable for this chamber with their further comments.
Do you think political allegiance to Trump is a requirement for serving our nation, either in uniform?
Do you think a political affiliation with Trump, that's pretty much saying if you don't agree with Trump, does that mean that you can't make decisions? So effectively, everything has to go in favor of Trump, which makes it incredibly corrupt. And I love the fact that he called him out on that.
We have major breaking news.
Judge rules Trump's federalization of the National Guard is illegal, returns control to California.
Right now, a federal judge has just...
So we've just seen that.
How many generals and admirals have you fired?
I don't know the exact number, but...
You don't know the number. It's 8. Can you explain why any of them were fired? Like, just explain why was...
They all serve at the pleasure of the president. I think.
No, I'm just asking you why.
General Kane is a great example.
I'm just asking you why.
That we need
you probably learned at Princeton what why means. Why did you fire him?
They serve at the pleasure of the president, and we want better representation in each and every of those.
You can't explain why you
want a better representation. More like you wanted people who kissed Trump's ass to be in those positions. And if you're not gonna fall in line, and you don't agree with his decisions, you're being replaced, effectively. Or it's political, whatever political party they're with, and they just want all them yes men in there. Either way. Someone's put, Hegseth is a robot, can't think why. He sounds like he's in a cult. He fired them because Trump told him to. Better representation, seeing who he fired, tells us he is in fact does not want his military to look like and represent our country. Because they need Trump puppets to replace him.
Yeah, and I'm sincerely concerned about this. Is it the policy of the Department of Defense that we need to be prepared to take Greenland and Panama by force if necessary? Is this a policy that you have within the Department of Defense in accordance with the president's wishes?
I heard what you said about those two countries and saying we need to worry about China. Well, we are worried about China.
That wasn't my concern.
China's malign influence in Panama.
I was concerned with us
China has
saying
control
that
of
using military force to take another sovereign
Panama.
country's territory.
We should pay attention to that.
Right.
So Panama is very key terrain that we've focused on, and we've been willing to focus on, as Greenland.
We should take it by military force. They're important. I'm not going to argue with that.
The Arctic is
I'm
incredibly
arguing with
important.
using our military to take it by force.
Our job at the DOD is to have plans.
Do you have a plan for that?
Our job at the Defense Department is to have plans for any particular contingency.
Including the contingency of basically
any
invading
contingency
Denmark.
you need, we've got it. We've got a building full of planners, and we're prepared to give recommendations whenever needed.
So just be clear, you have plans to take Panama and Greenland by force if necessary.
I think the American people would want the Pentagon to have plans for any particular contingency.
Not for that.
Thankfully, we are in the planning business.
Speaking on behalf of the American people, I don't think the American people voted for President Trump because they were hoping we would invade Greenland. I'm going to go out on a limb on that one. I yield back.
This is where it's crazy. He comes into the presidency and then he just starts making all these freaking proclamations. It's like, wait a minute, that was never said. He never said you was going after them. He never said you was going to cause havoc with your freaking allies. It's crazy. It's outrageous. Anyway, so the comment section onto the right here says, this administration is out of control. Why do they always avoid the question? I mean, when they ask that, I just think, do they genuinely not know why they do that? I've already explained why they do it. They do it to save face. You know, they're trying. They don't want to incriminate themselves or incriminate the president because, again, that backfires on them. So if it's going to be something that's going to be negative to them, they're not going to say it. No matter how much press they get, they're not going to say it because they don't want to put themselves at a disadvantage. So they'd rather just come across as really someone who's arrogant and not prepared to answer the questions. Although sometimes it is pure arrogance. He doesn't have plans. If he did, we'd all know about them. Yeah, because Trump can't keep quiet. So he's saying there's a contingency plan in place to invade every country. So we are invading Panama, Greenland, and Iran. What happened to the candidate of peace, the anti-war guy? Wasn't he the anti-war guy? And now we're invading 3 different countries in 3 different regions. Trump is literally starting World War III. All the accusations about China while the US has run around the world for 40 years. Let me just show it so you can see that I'm actually reading these. You can see on the side there. All the accusations about China while the US has run around the world for 40 years, overthrowing governments and starting wars, is wild. At the same time, China was busy lifting 800 million of their citizens out of poverty, but they're the bad guy. Well, let's not argue that they're really the saints, because they do have an awful lot of surveillance on their people. There's a lot of suppression of freedoms, isn't there? I think with even social media, you can only use specific apps, and you're only allowed, like youngsters for sure, like only allowed certain times of the day. It's quite mental. Again, that's a cultural thing, perhaps, but I still think there's a authoritarian nature to it. When they answer rudely or don't answer the question, why can't they be held in contempt of Congress and jailed? Yeah, I think there should be accountability with that as well. What is the point of these sessions? No matter how incompetent members of this administration are, nothing is ever done about it. Invading military parades, threatening to arrest their opponents. This administration looking like Russia. Yeah, I think that. He said Greenland and Panama, and he heard China. It's because he wanted to go on a tangent about China's intervention recently. Like over the time in Panama, they've got a lot of influence on the ports, which has then costed America a cost to go through and things. They just think China's establishing themselves there, so they see that as a threat, apparently. I rarely see them answer yes or no questions with direct answers. Well, they never have, and it's most politicians, not just in America, to be honest. The Americans have absolutely no right or reason to invade Greenland. There is nothing happening. There's not been a threat. There is nothing other than minimal rights that the United States wants. I think there's a strategic positioning of it, to be honest. I think because if you look at where it is, I think it has. If you're talking about military positioning, I think it has if you actually look at the map, it actually has with Russia, because I think Russia can come around the other side of Greenland. I think, because obviously when you look at a world map, you tend to look at the front of it. You don't look at the top across the Arctic and stuff. And I think if you actually look at where Greenland is, it's very strategic for both Russia and America. I'm not sure if others have got that point. Let me have a look. Let's have a look. Oh, Trump don't need a reason. Someone should show him the true size on a globe. It's small. It was wrong of Russia. Let me just pause it a minute so we can get a map. Let's have a look, because I might be... Right, we're back on. So yeah, so we've got the map now. We'll zoom in a little bit. So of course, we're normally, like as I live in the UK, for instance, it's always going to be predominantly here, and then we look at the map here. You only see the tail end of the top here of like Iceland, Greenland, and places like that. And then of course we get through to America. So that's really what we see. It's like this cut-off point. We don't really go beyond it. So if they're saying America wants Greenland, well, America's not, obviously America's next to Canada. Canada's closer to Greenland than America, but you could argue that, okay, they can reach it. So you're thinking, what would strategically you want with that? Because on the face of it, you'd say, well, that's the point. But you start moving up. See, look, you go up like this, and then you go across, all of a sudden, you've got Russia here. So, I mean, my mouse isn't coming up. Why is my mouse coming up on the screen? Unfortunately, I can't. So you just have to imagine it then. I can't do it. I've got to move it across a bit more as well. This is really annoying. I don't know why my mouse isn't showing. But anyway, so one side here is we've got Alaska on the tip edge here. Oh, it is coming up now. It's really off and on, isn't it? Maybe I'm going too fast. I don't know. But anyway, so we've got Alaska here, which obviously is a part of America. Then right across we've got is Russia. And so if Russia was to go, let's say you had Russian vessels or something, they're going across here to the top end of, to get past Alaska, the Arctic, and then it's through Canadian territory. Now, Greenland extends above the top there. So if Greenland was to be invaded by Russia, for instance, all of a sudden, Russia can obviously get into there. Then Russia has a real good capacity to get at the other side of Europe, because obviously, they can either come this way or they can go that way. I don't know how dangerous it is, ships and things to go that way, but you've got that. And then you've got all the little waterways and things between Canada. And of course, strategically, if they was to control Greenland, it does give them a base either side of America. That becomes a bit of a dangerous thing. I don't know how much really you could establish there. I'm not sure how much is habitable. But imagine that. Imagine America. Imagine Russia had military bases to this side, and then they also had military bases to this side. All of a sudden, America's blocked in. Although it's mainly Canada than America, because America's further down. But you get the idea, and I can understand it to a degree. But whether that's their plan, there's always nefarious reasons with the Americans. But anyway, sometimes you just got to zoom out a little bit, have a little look at the map, you know. So it does have its place. Let's get back on to. I think it was here. Yeah, let's go on to the next one.
Donald Trump commented about you being soft in Ashdod. He said, you're an angry young woman.
She's a young, angry person. I don't know if it's real anger. It's hard to believe, actually, but I saw what happened.
So it's all right for him to have an opinion on things, but it's not good for like Greta Thunberg, who has an opinion on the climate, on human rights, and she literally puts herself on the line. She's an activist, but it's all about like peace around the world, really. So she's trying to create reform, and because it doesn't fit his agenda of power, finances, and all that, he sees her as someone who's just having a tantrum. That's how he sees it. It's always like alternatives with him, double standards all the time, and undermine people who could be a threat.
She's certainly different.
He's different.
Anger management. I think she has to go to an anger management class.
Well, I think the world
I think he needs to go to class in general. He needs education.
needs a lot of more young, angry women, to be honest, especially with everything going on right now. That's the thing we need most of.
Donald Trump commented.
I would agree with that. If you look at most world leaders, they're men. So actually, if you think about it through history, now I don't know the full history of it, but you'd say some of the most inspiring leaders were women. So that does raise the question, doesn't it? Why is it always men in positions of authority? Now, I'm not saying one gender's better than the other, because obviously you can get masculine women anyway, but I think really someone who is very balanced, regardless of gender, would be a good leader. But it does raise the question. But you've got a man there, a very, I wouldn't just say unlikable. He's misogynistic. He doesn't like women, does he? He's always looked down at women. So it stands to reason he was always going to look down at Greta Thunberg. But I think she's shown herself to have far more class than he has.
Mr. President, after 3.5 years, you
This is great. Gets called up for his lies, and watch him.
regretted all the lying you've done to the American people. On
All the what?
everything. All the lying, all the dishonesties.
That who has done?
You have done. Tens of
Yeah,
thousands.
go ahead, please.
He's an idiot, isn't he? He's all intelligent, he's all articulated, and he's all ready to answer when it's something that favours him, and then when it's something it's not. It's like all of a sudden, but brain freeze. Oh, it's funny, really, isn't it? It's actually quite hilarious if he wasn't the president of the United States of America. That's what's deeply concerning.
I mentioned a few minutes ago that I had seen a video that sickened my stomach.
So this is about the senator who was detained we've just shown when he was wrestled to the ground, and it's being raised now in the Senate.
A U.S. senator being manhandled, we now know, by federal agents and dragged out of a hearing room. Now there's a second video. It's even worse. He's been thrown to the ground, again, manhandled, brutally taken down, handcuffed. It was disgusting. Anyone who looks at it turns anyone who looks at this, it will turn their stomach to look at this video and see what happened. Reeks of totalitarianism. This is not what democracies do. Senator Padilla was there, legitimately in that building, to ask questions of what's going on in California, which everybody wants to know answers to. We don't get answers when we ask the administration questions in one way or another. So Senator Padilla was exercising his duty as a senator for his constituents to try and find out what happened. And instead, he gets manhandled, thrown out of the room, thrown out on the ground, and handcuffed. We need a full investigation immediately as to what happened and who did what and what's going to be done to see that this doesn't happen again to Senator Padilla or other American citizens who are seeking their right to redress. It's despicable. It's disgusting. It is so un-American. So un-American. We need answers. We need answers immediately.
This is great. So this is it. Trump is watching the same musical as I am right now. This is the Les Miserables, which is about the, from my understand, the Renaissance. So let's have a look.
Yeah, it was just a big long.
So like, what on earth would he be there for? I don't think we're getting the same things out of it. That really got me. On a separate note, I actually do love plays and things like that. I haven't been to many, but every time I've been to one, I've truly enjoyed it. And I say maybe I want to do more in life. That's great. Maybe I've got to look up that film. Because I think it's a film, is it? Isn't it a musical that's they've adapted into a film or there's a recording of it? I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
Mr. President, I recognize the senator.
So, again, this is another one of them senators, but I think it's important to show the outcry in the room. You know, it's not just one person saying this is disrespectful. It's like it's one after another. You know, there's someone else talking about it now.
Senator from New Jersey.
And they're very
I
articulate,
never
of
thought I
course.
would imagine having to stand here
Because he's one of them.
and
you know?
discuss what I saw today. A United States senator.
It's literally the same as tackling these guys. That's what you've got to put it down as.
In his own community, in the city in which he grew up, elected under the authority of the people, stepping forward to get answers to legitimate questions. And we see him being thrown to the ground after being removed from a room forcibly and put into handcuffs by multiple people. This, to me, is such an abuse of authority. It is a violent act, and there can be no justification of seeing a senator forced to their knees, laid flat on the ground, their hands twisted behind their back, and being put into restraints. If you see the video, at that point, he's not fighting, he's not pushing. But this is a pattern and a practice. This is not an isolated incident. I remind people that in my own community, in the city of Newark, we had a congresswoman and a mayor at a facility. The mayor invited into the gate the Congress people, invited into a conference room, and then the mayor asked to leave, who did leave, and then numerous agents run out to arrest that mayor. Now, the judge in this case said it was outrageous, reprimanded the Trump administration for the arrest in and of itself. We see time and time again with this administration trying to precipitate a response by the misuse and the abuse of force. This is more akin to authoritarian governments. When you see a democratic nation having their executive begin to arrest mayors, begin to arrest judges, begin to arrest a United States senator who is simply asking for answers to their questions, to remove them from a room forcibly, to throw them to the ground, to put them in restraints. This is something that we should not tolerate. And by we, this is not Democrats and Republicans. This is we in this body. We have a constitutional obligation to provide oversight to the executive, a constitutional obligation to ask questions, to make inquiries, a constitutional obligation to check and balance the authority of the executive. And so here we saw, before our eyes, a senator in their district, in their state, asking questions, and we see him being shoved out of a room, but it did not stop there. Shoved to the ground, shoved onto his belly, and have his arms pulled behind his back. This should outrage every United States senator. This should outrage every United States senator.
Mr. President.
Now, I knew he was getting to this at some point. Martin Luther King. Now, this is incredibly inspiring because when you see what's going on, like, people do have to take a stand because it's just ridiculous. You see, America is in crisis right now. It's absolutely a breaking point. It's heaving. You've literally got someone who's been voted in as president, and yet it would seem that most people do not agree with him being the president. So it does make, and there are question marks over the ballots, whether it was counted correctly or whether there was corruption. I think they're looking in New York State at the moment, whether there was any tampering. Because if there's tampering there, it could be tampering everywhere. So effectively, he could be removed from office if he's not a legitimate president. I don't know how that all works, but of course, if he's not the president, and you look around the country, he isn't. And the other side of that is those that voted for him, they no longer align with him. Some of them no longer align with him because literally, some people just did it off of their own needs. Let's say the cost of groceries was high, the cost of living is high. Maybe they voted for him just to bring the prices down because he promised it. Instead, the price has gone up. All of a sudden, that's not what they voted for. And on top of that, he starts doing all this suppression stuff around the country. He's going too far with everything, and then he's starting to cause a crisis around the world. It's like maybe people didn't vote for that shit because he hid all that agenda. And this is what I think in politics, people should be held accountable. Whatever you say you're going to do, you better do. And I think if you don't, then there should be some way to demand it or remove from office because you can't go misleading people. I think it's so wrong. You can say whatever you want to become the leader, and then you do what you want after. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, I don't know how they think they're going to get voted in again because I think in his head he thinks he'll be president. He may run for office again. It's like, who's going to vote for this lunatic second time? You'd be mad.
Read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. But somewhere I read.
Anyway, I think that speaks for itself, to be totally honest. Of course, we go further, but this is some of the content I've been absorbing, and it's been searing into my soul, to be honest. And it's only a small fragment of what I've been absorbing. Believe me, I've seen so many instances with the protesting. I've seen live feeds of the protests. So I've got a first-hand, like, from watching it for a period of time. And I don't usually watch live content like that. But because I want to know what's going on. I want to watch and see how people are interacting, things they're talking about, what the vibe's like. It's important to catch a grasp of it during certain periods. So that's where I've got a lot of my regarding the protest, and I'm thinking it's not. I haven't seen it being incredibly bad. There might be the odd person who just steps up and tries to cause a bit of havoc. Maybe they just start throwing something, or they set a fire. I saw one set of firework off near the police line, and once the firework had just exploded and it finished, the police just rushed everyone. And yet it was one person who did it. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, you would argue now everybody else is rioting. No, it wasn't. It was that one person. Hold that person accountable. But it's easy to rush to judgment. And then what happens when you process, and this is the problem with all of it, it's like, what happens when you process them in the prison, like the jails? I don't know what one you go to first, but you go to the police precinct and they're processing you and things. It's like, how are they proving who did what when that person was just standing there? You could argue, you don't put yourself there, you won't find yourself in problems. It's like, well, if these people didn't speak up, who the hell would? And then you've got Trump running around causing absolute chaos. It ain't going to just end there. All your rights will be taken away. He's already trying to deport American nationals. This isn't just foreigners. Like, a lot of people keep freaking out. Well, they're naive. They think it's just people who are undocumented, people who've overstayed their visas, because I've seen it in comments. It's like, no, it's not. We're seeing reports of anybody, if you're coming in even on a holiday, tourist visa getting removed, and not even just necessarily going home. There's talk that even some people from England, which you would think, you know, they were supposed to be an ally. It's supposed to be like mutual respect between each other. But instead of just deporting them back to England, they send them to that, I don't know if it's called Guantanamo Bay thing, but I don't know where they send them, but they send them in those sort of areas, just with everybody else. So it's like, it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you're only a tourist. You don't know what they're planning to do. They're absolutely unhinged. And it's just the start of it, of course. And like I said, they're even trying to do it with some nationals as well, which is quite outrageous. It's the Wild West at the moment in America. It's mental.